Hi there. After my family and I started homeschooling, not long after, I decided to plan a trip to Washington, D.C. and the surrounding area. And we went with another family, and my kids had a blast. We visited all over D.C. I ran them ragged, but we had such a great time. And it's a trip that I really want other homeschool families to be able to enjoy. So I've organized a trip from April 12th to April 18th of 2026 just for homeschool families. And we will be seeing some amazing sites. We'll go to Ford's Theater, where the Lincoln assassination took place. We'll go to the Spy Museum. We're going to see, of course, all the memorials. We will see some government buildings. Also, Mount Vernon is one of my favorite places where George Washington made his home, and the National Zoo, the Museum of the Bible, the Smithsonian, and also Arlington Cemetery. So please join me. This is one of the best things you can do as an American homeschool family. But even if you're coming from abroad, you're more than welcome. I hope to see you there.
The Sam Sorbo Show is brought to you in partnership by the Herzog Foundation.
Hey, my guest today is Emily Grace Rainey. She is the mom of a little 6-year-old boy who has now been wrested from her control because of her political stance. This is a story that we don't think should happen today, and yet it seems all too common in a strange way. So we're going to get into the details with her. I don't think you want to miss this episode. This is the Sam Sorbo Show. Here we go.
Sam Sorbo.
Sam, welcome back to the program.
We're glad to welcome Sam Sorbo.
It's great to have you here.
All right, so welcome to the Sam Sorbo Show. My guest, Emily Grace Rainey, is the mother of a 6-year-old little boy, and she has now apparently lost custody. She was a homeschooling mom, and she is now dropping him off at school. If I read you some of her posts on Instagram, it would break your heart. It certainly breaks mine. So I thought I'd bring her on the show to talk about all of this and how it got this bad. Emily, welcome to the program.
Hi, Sam. Thanks for having me.
So I've been working on behalf of Parents Demanding Justice Alliance, which is an organization that we formed to fight for the parents who were targeted by their school boards. If you recall, Merrick Garland, the memo that categorized them as domestic terrorists. And so I've been working in that realm. Your story came across my desk, and I saw this post. Cheering him on in the morning, crying in the car after drop off. I'm getting emotional just reading that because I also lived that when I accidentally enrolled my kids in school after I had been homeschooling them for a year and a half. And but I did it voluntarily and then realized my mistake and undid it. You're caught in a situation where it's complete in a sense, right? It's completely out of your control. I suppose you could flee the country maybe, right? That and you probably can't because I'm sure there are some limitations that are placed on you. And now apparently you've lost custody. So let's go back to the beginning. I know this all started during COVID. And tell us a little bit about who you are and what happened during COVID when you'd already had the child, but during COVID you realized what was happening. Go from there.
So I was a new revert back to Christianity. So having a child can sometimes really wake you up. And I was not married. My child, Eli is his name. He was born out of wedlock. So my boyfriend and I were trying to make a go of it. And we were both active duty officers in the special operations community in the Army. And I was living in North Carolina and doing the single mom thing. His dad was stationed halfway across the country. And I was still an active duty officer when COVID hit. And in March, because my specialty in special operations was propaganda, I was a psychological operations officer. I immediately knew that this whole thing was a psyop. So despite the fact,
sorry, I'm just going to break in with little questions here and there. You immediately knew. So even the 2 weeks to slow the spread, you were like, that's not right.
I think it was probably about halfway in the 2 weeks to slow the spread when I was sitting there just watching the news constantly, and the pieces started to fall into place for me, and it just dawned on me, "Oh, crap." Like, what I do for a living is being done on us right now, and I had no social media presence, I was not an activist, I
Right.
sometimes voted, did not go to protests. I mean, you could say apathetic in a way, which is kind of odd since I was like in the military. You'll find that a lot of military people are that way. You're kind of conditioned to not have political opinions. And
Darling, we've
so
all been conditioned. All during our schooling, we've all been conditioned.
it's true. Yeah,
Not
it's
just
true.
that, not to have political opinions, not to exercise discernment, not to be able to distinguish between right and wrong, like all of these things. We're numbed in a sense.
Well,
So,
I thank my mom. She homeschooled me through a lot of my childhood on and off, and I think that that really
okay,
helped contribute to my critical thinking,
right.
and I thank her so much for that. Well, I just realized I had to do something, and I just started a grassroots, local, freedom-minded group, in Southern Pines, North Carolina, where I was living. And I called it More County Citizens for Freedom, and we would just do little things. We would have maskless shopping trips to the grocery store so that when you went, you'd see 50 other people that you knew. Like very quickly, my group got rather large, thousands of members, and we did all sorts of different things, especially we did a lot with the school boards. We helped to reopen North Carolina by all of the protests we did at the Capitol in North Carolina. And I would say the very first time that I made state news was when on Memorial Day, I was looking for a way to honor my friends, my fallen friends who died in different theaters of war. And so I went to the local park with my then 2-year-old and we played. I took down all the caution tape and we played. And I was actually cited for vandalism. And eventually those charges were dropped because the district attorney wanted nothing to do, or county district attorney wanted nothing to do with like the protests that were now starting to be formed around the fact that, all I was doing was playing with my son. But it was certainly, I knew I was committing an act of civil disobedience. Well, that played into our custody battle. So every little thing I do, you'll see eventually my ex, who used to be 100% in my corner, supportive, politically aligned in every way, so proud of me and always encouraging, then weaponizes all of this, all of the everything that I did against me, knowing that it would work in this biased justice system. So first things first, I make statewide media because I take down this caution tape, right? It sparks a series of kind of copycats all over the country who are doing similar things as civil disobedience. My group continues to do all sorts of things in our local and state politics, and continuing to fight the mandatory masking and lockdowns. And then comes the stolen election of 2020. So in January, there were 3 big rallies in DC, a November one, a December one, and of course, January 6th. I went to all 3. The first one I went with my family, my son and his father, my boyfriend at the time. And it was so great. We just came back and we said, "This is so uplifting. Let's find a way to do it for more people." So he helped me,
Now,
encouraged me.
was he living in town now at this point?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
he was able to get transferred when Eli was about 2 and a half. So I did a lot of that first period of his life by myself, and he also
Right.
had several deployments in between there. So I'm the primary caretaker of my son, and, I had some help with some, like, live-in nannies and stuff like that when he was little. I'm still active duty military in January of 2021, right? So I still need a lot of help because I'm going to work every
Sure.
day. So we go to that rally in November. It was great. I decided we're going to book a charter bus for the December one, and we're just going to bring as many people from my local group with us as possible. So we got 50 people. We went up there. It was really great. And then we came back from that one, and there was so many people wanting to go to the one on January 6th. I could have filled 5 buses, but I ended up booking 2 buses, and we went to January 6th. So I brought 100 people from my grassroots activist freedom group. Moore County Citizens for Freedom is what it was called. And that is when like my life really changed, because after being there on January 6th, and I mean, we could talk for 45 minutes just on the things I experienced that day, but suffice it to say, for the purposes of like our talk here, we went up there and came back as innocently as we went up there. I mean, I personally didn't witness anything illegal, at least that was to my knowledge illegal. I guess there was some boundaries. There's some, there was a protest area that everyone was supposed to stick to, and nobody really knew where that line was. So I guess we all were over it. But anyway, I was on the Capitol grounds that day, and we all came back knowing that something had happened that day, and that it was not quite what everyone was saying.
And your Eli's dad was with you for that?
No, he wanted to go on that day, but he couldn't get off work. So like I have messages from him saying, like, I wish I could have gone and all of that.
Right.
So
when did his shift take place? Because he sued for custody and he won. And so now I don't even think you have joint custody. You have part-time custody or something? Thanks for tuning into the Sam Sorbo Show. We are in a battle for our very nation, a nation that was founded on Christian principles and on the Bible. The 10 Commandments is the basis for our rule of law. But these days, when you go talk to people on the street, you'll find that most of them don't even know what rule of law means. And that's why I'm so proud to have Herzog Foundation as a sponsor of my show. I also love what they do because they seek for the benefit of Christian education throughout the nation. So Herzog Foundation is a wonderful partner for us here at the Sam Sorbo Show. Thanks for watching. So when did his shift take place? Because he sued for custody and he won. And so now I don't even think you have joint custody. You have part-time custody or something?
I see Eli every other weekend. So
Yeah.
96 hours a month to include sleeping time.
Right.
So I went
you're now
from
the estranged parent. So how did that come about?
So January 6th, the Associated Press did an article on me specifically because I was the only active duty Army officer that they could track down that was there. And so there was a international, because it's the Associated Press, there was an international media smear campaign done against me, saying that I was the architect of January 6th, that I was somehow involved. I know the Jewish Journal.
How did they get to that? Okay, but how did they get to that? Like you were there. Oh, she must have masterminded the whole thing.
People were trying at the beginning. The media was trying to like put the pieces together, and they thought there was no there, but they pulled on the thread of the fact that I was a PSYOP officer, and they were talking about how everything was a PSYOP, but they were trying to say that like I had conducted the PSYOP on the American people somehow, and that I brought a militia. I literally brought like 100 old ladies in tennis shoes, like people that don't typically drive 7 hours by themselves and don't really know their way around DC and the metro system and all of that.
Right.
So I literally spent January 6th with 2 octogenarians on like one on each arm, helping them walk across the mall to the Capitol from the Ellipse, like where Trump gave his speech. So it was the most absurd thing ever. I get put under investigation by the military for sedition and domestic terrorism.
Wow.
Because the Associated Press said so, not because there was any kind of facts associated with it. Yeah, this is all.
I'm sorry.
I know it
You know, if
sounds
you don't
insane,
laugh, you
but it's
cry,
because it is. People
right?
can, the
Yeah.
media
So,
can
okay.
ruin people's lives. And so I resigned my commission after 10 years in the military over this. I was cleared completely of all charges by the military. I was able to be given my honorable discharge from the military, but now it's the summer of 2021 and I immediately go to being a stay-at-home homeschooling mom. I bought a farm, start homesteading, looking for peace in my life, and I'm still doing like activism work locally, you know. And then there was one other big media event that happened within the context of my activism, and all three of these things between the park and January 6th and this last one all played into my custody battle. So the last one was in the late fall of 2022. There was a all ages drag show planned for my town, and me and my group, we protested it. Now this isn't very like newsworthy, just a all ages drag show and a protest, right? Except for that night, there was a attack on the grid of my county, and I was framed for it by the media again. Because once your name is in the media, like these journalists, these independent journalists that are like out there trying to find stories, like I'm already on the list. You know, you Google me, you can already see all these articles about me being a psyoper, all these articles about me being an activist and a conservative, outspoken. I'm doing lots of videos. So I was framed by the media, no proof, no evidence. I've never been charged with a crime. I have a completely clean criminal record to this day because law enforcement, they know that it's just a bunch of media smears. Like they have to look into it. Sure, I've been under investigation plenty of times, but there's no there. I just simply led a group of Christian conservatives to protest against an all ages drag show. And on that night, the grid got brought down by a substation attack. It happened at two or three separate substations simultaneously. And
Wow.
it ended the drag show. So that's kind of like where the
Yeah.
connection
So
was.
you're organizing a protest and the grid goes down. Who's the most likely person to have done it? The person who's organizing a protest.
And it
But
was
it's so
well-known
interesting
protest.
because um, drag show doesn't need a modifier, but they insert the modifier all ages as an incitement to bring children, which of course drag shows are not appropriate for children. So it's so interesting the way that they twist the words. Um, and so I totally support you going and protesting that they would do an all ages drag show, which of course in its name, it's completely inappropriate.
Exactly. And my ex actually believed that too, that it was inappropriate. He went with me to protest that night.
So, okay, we gotta fast forward. What sent him off the rails to go, you know what? I don't want you to be mommy to the little boy anymore.
In the beginning of 2023, after a very, very rough relationship having to do mostly with like mental health issues and him leaving the military and having a lot of substance abuse and mental health issues, I decided to leave the relationship. It was a very difficult decision for me to do, but I knew that I could never marry him. And I was starting to see that Eli was witnessing things at home that I couldn't cover up anymore because he's getting older. So I leave the relationship. And for the first 6 months of that breakup, we were amicably sharing custody. He had every single weekend. He had 2 FaceTime calls a day, not like a week, you know, a day. Uh, Zero alienation on my part. He was, like I said, he was getting him every single weekend. And then I met someone. And as soon as I
So,
met
and that was
someone,
purely voluntary. You guys just worked it out. You said, you know what? The
mhm,
little boy needs his dad.
we were
I
going to
can't be with
co-parenting
you.
counseling voluntarily every
Yeah.
week just to kind of work out our systems. Now, he'd started living with another woman pretty much right away and was dating another woman right away, and it didn't bother me at all. But then, of course, once I met somebody and I started dating him, pretty much immediately after I said it was serious, he sued me for custody. And in and I'm I'm sure you can pull this up on the screen, but he used every single thing that I have mentioned as a reason why I am not a fit and proper parent. I'll just read one of them here. This is like subsection 8 of his filing. She spoke approvingly online of the act of domestic terrorism that occurred in Moore County during the November of 2022 when Duke Energy Electric Substation was rendered inoperable by gunfire, leaving thousands without power for days. She is overtly and openly online anti-LGBT and supportive of those who harm that community.
And he's not? Like everything that he accused you of,
I
you
have
took part in.
evidence. I have evidence that he doesn't believe in those ideologies. I submitted all that evidence to the court. And the only thing that we never fought about was politics. We were both
Right.
big Trump fans. I mean, for his 40th birthday, I surprised him with an ultra MAGA birthday. That was the theme. Like, because that was the term that Biden had used at the time. And we were all kind of just leaning into it, and it was like really fun.
So how long ago did he turn nasty and basically, it's interesting that it must have just come out of the blue. Oh, by the way, I'm suing you for custody, because there was no divorce. There was no settlement.
I was completely shocked. Yeah, I was completely caught off guard and completely shocked. In fact, he had a very serious, like, suicidal ideation a couple of weeks before he sued me. And this was kind of a constant theme in our relationship. Whenever I would say, hey, like, I'd call him out or say, like, I'm going to leave, like this, we can't continue to do this. Then he threatened to hurt himself, kill himself. And, I called 911 and all these kind of things. I have all of this on record, and I have recordings of it. I have text messages of it. All of this was submitted as evidence to the judge. But he called me at 2, 3 in the morning one night when he had Eli laying next to him in his bed. This was during his visitation. It was a weekend. And he told me on the phone, I'm going to canoe my skull out, which means I'm going to shoot myself in the head.
Are you looking for quality homeschooling resources? Apologia offers top-notch curriculum for all ages. It's designed to inspire a love of learning and a strong foundation in faith. Head over to apologia.com and use code SORBO10 to get 10% off your next purchase. Equip your children with the best education tools and save today at Apologia, the trusted choice for homeschooling families.
And he told me on the phone, I'm going to canoe my skull out, which means I'm going to shoot myself in the head. And I said, where is Eli? And he's like, he's right next to me. And it was at that moment I said, you're not well enough to keep him on weekends. So like this was the next day. And he agreed. So he asked me to go no contact at all for 2 weeks. He didn't want any phone call, didn't want any FaceTime phone calls. He didn't want any visitation. He said, I'm going to go get myself right. And I said, I think that's a great idea. Go do that. At the end of those 2 weeks is when he sued me for custody, full custody.
Wow. That must have been, it must be absolutely frightening. Terrifying.
And now,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
And now, I have no idea how safe the environment even is that Eli is in. But what's worse is that as soon as I got this order back saying that I'm losing all my custody because of my politics, I started speaking out about it, and he starts filing contempt motion after contempt motion, attempting, even though I'm not committing any kind of a contempt, because there's no court order that can tell me that I cannot speak about this. There's different things in the court order that says, hey, you can't disparage the parent in front of the child, all of that. And my intent is not to disparage the parent. My intent is to bring awareness to the plight of the justice system and how my case specifically, conservative Christian, homeschooling, loving parents, mothers and fathers are losing their children all over the country, because I've had hundreds of people reach out to me and say, this is happening to me too. My husband took took custody because of not vaccinating, or my husband took custody because he says I'm in a religious cult, which is just Christianity, and this is happening a lot to a lot of people, and it's kind of a silent epidemic. And I
Okay.
have a small platform, and this has happened to me, and I'm not going to go quietly. I'm going to fight forever for my son.
What do you attribute, just to be very clear, what do you attribute the judge's decision to most? Or, go through the list, like top priority, second priority. Why did the judge say, you know what, you guys had worked out a reasonable custody agreement where he got the boy on the weekends, you had the boy, he got two phone calls, 2 FaceTime calls a day. That seemed to be reasonable. But instead of that, because this man is suing for custody, I'm just going to give him full custody, and you'll have is your visitation supervised, or it's every other weekend? That's it?
It's every other weekend. It's unsupervised.
It's
but
unsupervised. Thank goodness. Go ahead.
In the permanent order, there's a section of it, and anybody that's gone through custody battle knows about this. It's a section of it called findings of fact. In the findings of fact, she's not going to write out, I'm violating this person's First Amendment rights right now. So
the judge isn't going to write that. But what did she say?
Right. Nothing about my motherhood that would warrant. There's nothing in the findings that would conclude that I only get my son every other weekend. In fact, in the findings, she specifically states I am a fit and proper parent. But in order to understand that this was entirely politically based, you had to sit through 5 days of court and know that the only evidence that was ever submitted against me was political. So it was all of my Instagram.
So I'm sorry. I really want to try better to understand, because he was also political. You submitted also evidence that he was with you politically. So
he didn't have a social media presence. Like, he was not publicly posting things. So I have hundreds of videos.
Oh, you have more power. You have a larger reach. You have a louder voice. Okay. So you think that it's political. Is it also having to do with homeschooling, or is that sort of ancillary?
Well, he turned on homeschooling in the court, of course. He said that, it was not good for our son to be homeschooled by someone with extremist political beliefs and a cult-like religious mentality and all of that. So he was always supportive of homeschooling up until the point he could use it against me, because, of course, the courts are never in favor or on the side of a homeschooling parent.
Is his behavior just to hurt you? Is that really, do you think it just boils down to that? Is he just so enamored with his child that he just wants his child and decided to go get him? What is the motivating factor?
I think he is motivated by winning and by beating me. He wants to make me suffer, but he also just wants to win. And he will do whatever it takes, including violate his own integrity.
But here's the problem. There's a problem with the logic of this, regardless of what your political beliefs are. And they play the videos to show, ostensibly, that you are not a fit mother. And yet, you still have custody. You still get him every other weekend. So you're not really an unfit mother.
In her findings, she said, I am a fit mother.
Right.
You're a fit mother that doesn't get to have your child anymore, even though you've been the primary caretaker.
It's logically speaking, it doesn't make sense.
No.
No,
it doesn't. But I was thinking to myself in the court, I'm like, why did they pick this video?
You're lucky, because she left you with every other weekend, at least. Seriously. I think you're lucky. And I think, we have to stop, to a certain degree, playing the name game, because the labels don't mean anything anymore.
It's so true.
Because everything is now divided, even inside the labels, it's divided. And so we're finding, look, during COVID, the teachers unions were like, keep the schools closed. And I'm like, yes, wait, what just happened? I'm on the side of the union. How did that happen? Right. And so
homeschool everyone. Wait, how did I get on their side?
Right. How did that happen? So they're with me. And so I'm with them. Okay, wait. And And so, yeah, yeah, you had probably not great representation, but also, the cards were skewed in the other direction. And I would say you retained partial custody. You're appealing it,
Yes, of course. Yeah, we are
which
appealing it. In North Carolina,
incidentally is not
everyone
without
gets
cost.
no, not at all. I mean, I've had to start a give, send, go because these things bankrupt people. Honestly, most people can't afford to fight. Most people cannot afford to take this to the appeals level or
I
to
know. I
take it
represent many of
further.
them.
And because of that, like I've had to start a give, send, go, which my ex then filed a contempt motion saying that I'm using Eli in my politics again, which is one of the things that they said I couldn't do because in the court order. But I'm not using my motherhood is not political. This is my life. This is my son's life. I'm
Okay.
allowed to raise money for
Yeah.
my own case. And in North
So,
Carolina, appeals take up to a year and maybe even longer if they're complicated cases, which ours is.
yeah.
So
And while I agree with you, everything is political. Stay ahead of the storm with IQ Weather, a premium all video homeschool course that makes learning science exciting and engaging. This vivid, entertaining program incorporates physics, chemistry, geography, geology, astronomy, and oceanography, giving your kids a well rounded education in the fascinating world of weather. Designed to captivate young minds, IQ Weather makes complex concepts easy to understand and fun to explore. Visit iqweather.com and use code SAM to get 15% off your order. Give your kids a science education they'll love and stay prepared for anything. Start your IQ Weather journey today. And while I agree with you, everything is political. And the sooner that our side recognizes that, right? The sooner that everybody recognizes that, the better off we'll be. You can't hide behind not being political anymore because everything is political. Motherhood is now political because you can't be a mother because you have to admit that then transgender people can be mothers or transgender. I can't keep it all straight, but basically they're birthing people, they're not mothers, or they're breastfeeding people or they're not breastfeeding, like,
chest
so
feeding. You
everything
have
is
to say chest
political.
feeding to be politically correct now.
Chest feeding, correct. Chest feeding, which, yeah, I can't even. So okay, so
So
you're
of course,
appealing.
so when I was sued, I thought to myself, I have 14 more years in this custody battle because I know that it's never going to end. He's a high conflict person. It's never going to end. So I just applied and got accepted into law school, and I'm finishing my first year of law school now because I'm like, well, I might as well. 3 years in law school, I've got 14 years of a custody battle. So I mean, it's a difficult
That's a good
path.
point.
There aren't a lot of conservatives in the legal profession. There's not a lot of conservative judges, true like really conservative judges. There's not a lot of conservative lawyers, so you don't really have a lot of people to pick from if you need. I mean, with all of your legal battles and advocacy, that there's not a lot of uh, conservative lawyers out there. And
Now, have you tried the nonprofit legal representation for, First Amendment rights and that kind of a thing?
I'm in conversations with a lot of different advocacy groups, and a lot of people just want to wait to see how the appeal goes because on its face the entire case is such a sham. That there is nothing that would lead you in any of the testimony or evidence that would justify the legal conclusion that she has created. She also took a whole year to write her findings. So we go to court and she doesn't submit an order for a year. In
That's
that time,
crazy.
so we went and we had a temporary custody hearing. It was under a different judge, and he saw all the same evidence just on just over 2 days instead of 5. And he gave me primary custody and only him every other weekend. So this other judge reversed it after nearly 2 years of being under a temporary custody, or reversed it completely.
Right.
And
And
I
so
mean, the whole thing
obviously,
is full of factual errors and nonsense. So a lot of people just want to wait and to see how the appeal goes.
how does that help you? That doesn't help you at all.
Well, the appeal could completely rescind the order. They could remand it back to the court for a new trial. They could issue a new ruling, but I expect that the appeal will be successful and we will have a new trial. But if it is not, then I am prepared to take it to the North Carolina Supreme Court and the U.S. Supreme Court. Well, you know, you know that all about this already, Sam, but there are two things you really need to have any kind of Supreme Court bid be successful. If you want cert from the Supreme Court, you're going to need a constitutional issue, which of course mine is massively constitutionally based. You can't lose your parenting rights over First Amendment issues, period. No matter what's
you can.
You can, because these low-level judges have so much control, and you have, malicious actors like my ex who are willing to weaponize that against, for their own benefit. But a constitutional issue that will cause a precedential value, meaning that, it's basically case law now, and other judges can use that to take other people's kids away. So it's a big deal that this is on the books right now in North Carolina. And then the second one is you need public interest. So, my ex is constantly filing these motions saying that I am slandering him and all of this stuff. And I'm like, well, slander is its own civil case, please sue me for slander, because you won't win that one, because there is no slander here. I have everything documented and I am willing to defend myself. And bottom line is I need to raise awareness so that I have the chance of a Supreme Court bid. And I also need help with my funding, which is why I'm staying public, because that's a question I'm getting a lot, is like, you've lost your son for being such a loudmouth, aka standing up for my beliefs and trying to create a country worth living in for my children. I'm 28 weeks pregnant, by the way, so I have another little boy due at the end of December.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You know what? It's a little bit late to try to put the horse back in the barn. Now is not the time to be quiet. That time has passed, right? In a sense. And so it's kind of a silly question to go, well, why are you still speaking up? You already lost your son. I suppose there's more to lose, but not much more than your little boy,
Right. Right.
So,
and I mean, at the end of the day, like, I have to answer to him when he's going to grow up. He's going to grow up and he's going to know the truth himself. And I'm not going to be silenced by fear. I'm his mom.
And what I want to point out to the audience is you're not the only person who is suffering in this way. There are plenty of these stories, sadly. They take different forms. They're the parents that are losing their children because the divorced or estranged spouse or other is seeking to trans the child. There are lots of these stories, sadly, and the courts are not equipped really to deal with it effectively, clearly. So we wish you luck in your appeal. I hope that it just goes smoothly. You get a good judge, and maybe that would be the end of it. Although you have a combative father, and so you're right to study law. You're right to go to school and get yourself trained.
And I hope that I can. I hope that I can, when I graduate and I'm a lawyer, and hopefully when this case is behind me, like, I'll be able to represent that parent who doesn't want their little boy to become a little girl. Like, it's
right.
This has gotten so out of control. Like, what is even happening in this country?
Yep, exactly. Emily Rainey, we will put the links in the notes for the show, and so people can go to your Give, Send, Go and all of that. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Sam.
So this is the Sam Sorbo Show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, speak truth, speak it boldly. We'll see you next time.
The views and opinions expressed in the Sam Sorbo Show are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views and positions of the Herzog Foundation.